your space, take the room. It's your room now. Don't wait. Unless, of course, you're playing a guy who's hiding. But I mean, sometimes you can be too polite. You can be too nervous. You can be in doubt of certain things. But if you don't take the room, you're not going to make the scene work.
Haven't planned this, but I always think the most interesting things come out of kind of when actors talk to each other. And I wonder if any of you have any questions for each other that you haven't had a chance to ask. You know, I could let you sit with that for a couple of minutes and I can go on, but if, you know, maybe think about it. If there's things that you want to ask about each other's roles, you know, please do feel free to do that. I also want to talk about Chadwick Boseman's performance as Levy in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. His untimely passing last year left a huge void, but his legacy will forever be remembered through his unflinching commitment to all of his performances. There is a Q&A available with some of his co-stars and the filmmakers for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and we will post information of that in the chat so you are able to hear some of his cast members talk about him. But also just wanted to ask, again, only if you want to, if any of you have seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and you'd like to talk about his performance, please feel free to do so.
I'm just going to say that I didn't know the man and I wish I could have met him, and just, you know, to witness the way he works, because he's done so, as you said, Riz, he was doing so many different roles, and as an actor, that's what you're trying to find truth and do, you know, explore different characters, and he was doing it so well. And his last performance was amazing. I mean, it touched me very deeply, and yeah, when I think about him, because knowing what he was going through makes it even more admirable, you know. And he's a real inspiration to a lot of people now, and became a beautiful message for the new generations.
Yes, thank you. We have so many questions, so let's try and get through some of them. Okay, so one for all of you. What is the best piece of advice a director has given you?
Stay truthful.
It's actually, sorry, go ahead.
Just this, one director told me someday, stay truthful and generous.
Yeah.
Adarsh?
Yeah, go ahead, Ash.
It was this thing that Ramin never called action on set. Neither did he ever call cut. So for the past 10 years, every project that I was part of, that it suddenly changed the whole thing, because the moment that started happening, I realized that I didn't feel like a bot anymore. That I wasn't trying to be somebody, but I was just there. That I was always ready.
Sense of freedom.
Yeah. It felt so normal, like. And cut was when he would just walk into frame. So you would be doing the scene, and then he would like go beyond whatever the scene was written. Like, and then Ramin would be part of the scene. Like, he would be one of the co-actors, and they're like, "Oh, the scene's over."
Yeah. He was. I was done 10 minutes ago. I don't know what you're both doing.
I have two. I mean, it's not really. One is a direction, another one is just advice. The first one, the advice is like, take your space, take the room. It's your room now. Don't wait. Unless, of course, you're playing a guy who's hiding. But I mean, sometimes you can be too polite. You can be too nervous. You can be in doubt of certain things. But if you don't take the room, you're not going to make the scene work, you know. Secondly, I had a director who's often said when we were improvising, you know, he gave us a start and a finish, A to Z, and he didn't care how we got there, as long as we made him feel like this, he would say. Then he would come up with something, make me feel like this when you leave the scene. Mm-hmm. And that was very interesting, because it could have been 1,000 things, but somehow it was one thing. And it's always been very inspiring.
We have a question from Paul Westwood for all panelists. I think we might have answered this slightly, but he said, films are often shot out of sequence. I was wondering how you keep hold of where you are emotionally in each scene while shooting. do you heavily annotate scripts, or do you trust you'll remember where your character is? Adarsh, I might come to you on this, and I think we touched on it briefly, but obviously you shot the end, didn't you, first for the White Tiger? And obviously kind of your character was in a very, very different place at that point. And so to answer Paul's question, how did that affect your process?
It wasn't really the end, because we kept intercutting between the Balram from Bangalore to the Balram from the village. So, but it was very tricky. Also because I felt like I had spent more time as the Balram from the village while my preparation was going on. And I wasn't quite sure about how how the Bangalore businessman would land. I was quite apprehensive about it. But the way I really go about it is that I make sure that I know the script at the back of my head, completely. So I make sure that I go through the script a bunch of times, like more than a dozen times. And then before the scene, I always take some time off, and I used to sit with Ramin and discuss the whole graph of wherever, what all Balram has gone through till this point. And I would do that every time for the smallest of scenes. So I guess, that's very important, right? Because it does get very confusing sometimes. Yeah.
And Mads, for you with another round, kind of, did you shoot in chronology, or if not, kind of, obviously your character is at very different emotional states during the film?
No, we didn't, but we did as much as we could, and I completely agree with Riz. It's a gift when you get the chance to do it, but for a ton of reasons you can't always do that. If you have the chance, do it. But Thomas did his best to make it chronologically. What I normally do is, just like you said, you read it again and again. You go back. You go back 20 pages back, 30 pages back before you do the scene if it's out of order. And even if you haven't shot these scenes, you relive them. You rethink them. You might not be in all of the scenes. You take your own little pitch. Where is my character? What's happening? But you also kind of try to stay on top of it. Where is the audience now? How much can we push this envelope when we see this again, right? So it's all about trying to get into the flow as if you did it chronologically. So the only way you can do that is just go back, read it again, get into the emotion, isolate yourself, go and shoot it.
That's actually something I've never thought of. And there's an interesting point, kind of, do you all have that thought, where is the audience at this point? Kind of, is that something that you kind of think about, kind of emotionally, where should they be at this point?
No, I didn't mean the audience. I mean the script. Where's the script? Where does the script want us? I mean, how did it catch me the first time I read it?
Yeah.
And I should try to relive that, even though we haven't shot it, right? That's what I meant.